Okay. Hi. Thanks, Caro, for having me here in this quite bizarre setting. I mean, we have at least a bunch of people sitting around, but to me, it feels like more like a, I don't know, like a pirate broadcasting studio or acting class rehearsing for some stage appearance. But actually, it's all real, and now it's my time to act. So I'm curious, let's get to it. I bring quite a different perspective to this row of talks, I guess, because mine is more really focused on the design development process on an example of a real project that we did as a studio. It's named in the titles of my slides. We worked on the redesign of SPIEGEL.de, one of the German major news websites, and that's me. It's the first time that we talk about this project in public, also because all the things turned out differently this year than we expected them to happen. And also, it's my first public appearance at all, so let's just hope this goes well. I found that my outline that I wrote as a proposal for this talk is actually a good piece of text to guide you through my talk also. So what am I going to talk about is like how we as a really small studio in Hamburg get to work on a bigger project like this, and what did it look like. I'll give an insight into the kind of design work we did and also the design system we built. Later, I want to also talk about these challenges when you work as a third party on a product and you have to adopt it into a company, which is like a sweet spot in the process too. And after all, I want to focus on some key results since the overall topic here is impact of UX, and I guess there's something we can find there. So, as a small studio, we are Make Studio. We call ourselves also a small studio for big ideas, which means that we are small and we take on like bigger challenges in the design field. We have like two areas we focus on. The one is like brand design and building brand identities, and the other part is digital design. And all this comes from the expertise from me and my partner. So my partner is more like the brand guy and I'm more like the digital guy. And we've been doing this studio work like for 8 years, like Caro mentioned, but projects got more interesting over time, and this one is one of the most recent ones right now. And I just run through a few of the projects so that you get a feel of what the work we do looks like. Like most of those projects, they span from CI, as we call it, to UI. It's like our spectrum, and we always try to make this like a overall brand experience on all levels. So these are all work samples where we did naming, CI, visual design. We also try to have fun with the work that we do. Another project which I want to mention is Deutschlandfunk is also related somehow topic-wise with Spiegel, because it's also again about journalism and digital journalism. And when I think about the talks that went before, I can see things where we think about too, like the kind of responsibility you have to think of when you're designing products. If you think of public broadcasters, you have that very present there. Also, we do, of course, like smaller client works. Like this is a nice little design shop, and in Hamburg, and we did a web shop for them. So the spectrum of work we do is quite broad and diverse, and I think that's the thing we like as a studio, doing like this project work that changes with every now and then. So if you want to follow us or take a closer look, there are some links for you. And as we can see on the grid on the right, there's the project we're going to look at today, the Spiegel relaunch. So talking about Spiegel, I guess it's quite, everybody from Germany maybe knows Spiegel is a weekly news magazine that was founded in 1947. It's one of the leading news formats in Germany, and it was the first news magazine online in 1994, worldwide, actually. So I think it was just one day before the Times. It's kind of this industry standard. And I think also from the feel of the word, this really matches with the Spiegel, how you would think about der Spiegel. That's how it looks like. It's the magazine, and on the right you can see Spiegel Online. That's the product, as everybody might know it, because it existed for 25 years that way, and it was built 1994, and it evolved from there, like step by step. And then at some point it was just it was needed to change in a bigger way. So Spiegel Next Gen was the title of this project, and it had there had to be done a huge overhaul of all sorts of things. So journalistic-wise, in design, also technical relaunch. There were many, many things running, and the design development part was just one of this. And that was this part where we came in. At that point, Spiegel, I don't know if some of the team is also tuned in and watching. And if you do, hi. I hope I see you again, maybe soon, maybe IRL, as I learned today is some term for meeting in real life. Hope we can do that soon again. I also want to shout out to Christina Elmer. She is like the one person at Spiegel who made all this groundwork happening for the time when we stepped in, that there was already a very strong vision, that there was already like research and all of that done to find an environment where you in a, let's say, bigger organization need a good ground where you can go and develop, and not having like too many obstacles to deal with. The whole organization at Spiegel was in times of transition in many ways. So where there was this digital transformation going on, there was also consolidation of all these brands that were out there. Of course, there was Spiegel and Spiegel Online, but they had like a mix of all sorts of things that were not very consistently anymore. So for you to understand the environment, our track was this digital design track, and then there was this brand track. Another agency worked on that to make this architecture work. And then there was even more change happening, since in 2019, the editorial teams merged into one. You have to imagine that this this news product, there were two separate things, magazine, online, and there were two separate editorial teams. And it's just crazy to think about it that way, because lots of work gets lost between those teams. And in 2019, they merged. So, but this is also even a greater challenge if you think about that. All things happened simultaneously. So it was not just a relaunch, it was really a huge shift for the whole organization. So now, how did we get to work on this project? It was, of course, a pitch, an agency pitch. And I want to give you a little side kit from my personal life. It was in 2018, and just 1 month ago, my son was born, and I was taking some time off, and also my dear grandmother passed away that time. And I thought, well, I don't know, if I return to work, I'm gonna take things more slowly and work half days and stuff like this, so it's getting easy. And then the day I returned, I think this letter arrived, and it was, okay, that's interesting. It's a pitch for Spiegel Online. It's something where we didn't think that this ever would come to us, because we're like, a small studio. And I will explain later why this was a fit after all. But we were thinking, okay, what are our chances here? So we are really small. It's a big invest if we put all our efforts and time into a pitch where you have like strong competitors. Also, we were kind of new to all this digital journalism stuff. Also, we have never done a major design system before, and all the things that we would need to do there need to be done correctly and at scale. So you see the challenge. But we were thinking this is absolutely a once-in-a-lifetime chance for us. And we know that somehow we can do it, because we believe in our capabilities. And if you're invited to a pitch like this, you must have done something right on the way. And there was just no question asked. We just had to try. And that's how we got into this. When we started, I got sick the first day, and I had to stay in bed for 1 week, which was not good. But then the first day we sat together, we were thinking about, okay, let's imagine this digital news product of the future. What can it look like? How do we get a feel of that? So this was also one thing in this pitch briefing, to think about that. And we just got drawn into this whole world of cool stuff, like all this investigative journalism, storytelling, mobile experiences, immersive technology, AR, VR. I don't know. It was like the internet was full of all of that, and we were digging deep and having fun with all that stuff. And we were so high on inspiration at some point that we somehow forgot about to actually build, because there were 10 days left, and we knew that someday we had to deliver, and that was when we really started to get going. And it was cool because at that time we had like all these things in our minds, and we just produced lots of stuff, lots of interesting stuff. We had super fun with building chatbot prototypes and design patterns, experimenting with new ways of telling stories, and these are the results of our pitch. Also, these, I think, were never shown in that way before, but just a glimpse of that. A mobile experience, you can see that we thought about some video, news thing, and a chatbot. So luckily, 4 weeks later, we got this message that we won. It was just so cool because what I didn't mention before, we were just two guys. It was me and that guy in WhatsApp. I was writing to him that I couldn't believe that we won this pitch. It felt unreal, even more like, when Greece won the European Soccer Championship, even that in comparison to Otto Rehagel's football, maybe our results were nicer to look at or something like this. So, and I think one thing is that it was just a good feeling because we were so vision-driven. We were so into this thing. We wanted to find an answer on this big question, what does it need to look like, that we, I think, just delivered all that spirit in our pitch. And it was seen by the client that somehow they could trust in our willpower and effort to do this. So I want to share with each chapter a few learnings from the way. I think doing pitches is a thing. It's not so easy to decide, but if you do it, you have to do it right, of course. You have to trust in the things that you can do and know like how far you can take it. You should really do it right. Don't do half measures because afterwards you want to actually win this. And if you're only in it with, and I guess you have always to focus on what really are what's your main expertise. Because I think in comparison to other agencies, we were really on the design building side, maybe not so much process, but in that way, we were authentic in the things that we did, and it worked out for us well. Okay, so get to work. The setup of this project, we sat together with a team, and we scoped it somehow. We looked at our goals and also on KPIs, like what defines our success in the end. The team from our side were 3 guys, and also later at some point Anne joined in to support for a while. She's also freelancer with Xing here. And to give you an understanding of the whole setup, there was like a core team. We had a project lead, he's a UX guy coming from agency also, and also we had an internal design team, people we onboarded during the process, and there were different departments that we worked with, like the R&D department. The tech lab was like the developers, and the product team was established at Spiegel over time in the past, and there was like also one person pushing things forward from there. All in all, I think it was more than 100 people involved in the whole project over the 2 years. And here's a timeline to give an understanding. We started in summer 2018, and then we had like 3 major milestones where we needed to finish our direction, then have a foundation ready and have the system ready in just, if you look at it, in like 9 months, which is tight. And at the same time, of course, there were other things going on, like the technical migration, like the brand architecture building. And if you look at that timeline, it gave us an advantage because we were a bit more early on the design building side than the brand architecture. So our chance was to define the visual language in the design environment rather than coming from the logo and the typical brand design environment. And this was really cool for us as designers. And then we moved into this fancy building. All the people from Hamburg maybe know it. First, we had our office in the 7th floor here, and later we moved ourselves up to the 12th floor. It was a funny coincidence, but you have a really great view from there. And they have crazy staircases, and it's all quite cool. Yeah, learnings from a project setup, I think there are a few. If you're a designer joining into a team, you really have to find your seat at the table. This is a term that's used often, but you have to get into discussions. You have to get involved and talk to people and get a hold of like the people making decisions and also guiding the process. This was quite critical to us. We needed to know our key results where we can align our work to. And also, it's always good to have, in a bigger environment like this, to have some person there who is in charge, who's also able to make quick decisions to move things forward. So what did it look like? Design direction was the first thing. How do you actually redesign this product, the Spiegel Online, which is a news website that reaches mostly like everybody or tries to reach everybody in Germany more or less. How do you do that, and how do you also take advantage of the fact that we could go for a clean slate? We could really rebuild it from scratch somehow, and this is a great opportunity. How do you do this? How can you shape the brand identity in the digital environment? And how can we also align all this on the user's expectations? And maybe how can we use the things that we built in our pitch already and build upon this? So this was in the 3rd quarter of 2018. And if you look at the design process, okay. We started around here. So this is a typical process in service design. So all this groundwork was done, and we started in the part where design development comes in. At first, we established a few rules for ourselves to be responsible in a way we act in design building. And then we really tried to take it broad. We started with some explorations, so to say, and there was a set of personas that were relevant for Spiegel, and we focused on the 4 most relevant personas and did some design explorations where we thought, what would be the perfect product for this particular persona? To see maybe that's not the real product we're building, but this opens up like our horizon and possibilities how it could look like or how it could work. And that's actually just these 4 different designs we did. They are quite, there's this one really fast mobile app, and there's this very typical news website on the right, and then more magazine style on the left. So these were all different aspects what Spiegel could look like and could maybe embody in one product after all. And then after this explorations, we had some kind of reality check. So we needed to meet the product requirements that existed at that point. We needed to converge all these explorations again and define some actual look and feel to work on for this new product. So this was the point where we could shape the brand identity. If you think of Spiegel, this is a very iconic logo mark. Then we took a look at the typeset and found that the Spiegel type family, which is done by Lukas de Groot Type Foundry, there's this Spiegel slab typeface that is used in the magazine, and we thought we need that kind of expression in the product because it's so text heavy, so you would recognize it all the time that you're at Spiegel. We also did that with all the color sheet and all the type settings. Of course, we did some UI icon set that was just very clean and functional. And then we had to deal with this mass of page templates to build. And at that point, we looked at lots of research that was done by the product development department, like surveys, user interviews, and stuff like that. And we sat together and thought about these key aspects that product development concepts are required for us to find solutions for. And there were a few, and I want to flag them out. The newsfeed on the homepage should be organized in clusters so that you were able to focus on what's important or what needs to be quick. Also, we had to distinguish between news and opinion. This is quite important if you're a news website in order to address the right message. So this is what iterations looked like in the first draft. There you see news on the left, opinion in the center, and smarter living is like a magazine part on the right. And while we were iterating, these changed and changed again and changed again a little bit. I think this was the final thing. And talking about news clusters, if a message starts to grow, there's maybe this one story, and then it gets bigger, and now it's like a whole news cluster with one top story and two smaller ones attached, and it even grows, can take different forms. And that was the whole system we were building for the news feed. And it was great teamwork. We had fun. It was cool working there with this team, with this core team, on this very focused day-to-day basis. Here are a few comps that from out the process. You won't find them in that way today because there was lots of decisions made, and we had to narrow it down, of course. But these were all like fragments from the process. And all in all, it was quite a lot of design comps that we clicked in that time. And we got a lot of feedback too. And we had to consolidate that like every 4 weeks until we were finished. One more thing, at the same time, of course, user testing happened. And by the end of the year, 2018, we had a design that was done and we can build upon. And these are a few examples here from the final design. So this is the home page. You saw the news feed and then a video blog. So these are just the typical patterns you would see when you go to Spiegel. This is the same page on mobile, so the same patterns, but just much more compact. Here, this chart shows quite well how brand recognition works, also in typography and color. You don't even need the top bar all the time. And there's an article page. And this article page also, I'd say this, you would see Spiegel magazine online. This is much more matched right now. And here is the comparison between news and opinion. How do we distinguish that one? Also much by typography and a bit about the author. And this is this new department, which is more like smarter living, has a magazine style, editorial layout, and it's dealing all with life-like stuff. Right, so learnings from building this design. The free explorations were really good to have because there's no strings attached, and you can always take things from there and put it into your basis design structure. It's important to prioritize all the stakeholders' feedback in order to move into a direction. And of course, working on design, it's absolutely critical to consult with your development partners as early and as often as possible, because in the end, it has to work out somehow in the implementation, of course. Also, complex product, keep things as simple as possible, of course, and keep pushing for the good ideas, because this is the one part in the process where you can do it actually, because later, when you have to build a system, it's more or less like another angle. So a brief insight into the design system. Design system, actually, for everybody, I think you know, but it's a term where we talk about shared, reusable components and ways of working for teams that that we would achieve to have a product on a higher level of consistency and efficiency, be better and faster into market. And that's just quite important for digital products as the environment and the market is growing and ever changing, and you just need to be fast. So the challenge is here where we have this design and we needed to build a system in very short time. The development process should start from there. So we had to lay out the foundation instantly. We were transitioning into more a design engineering process where we were building a structure that needs to be smart, that needs to be built in code just the next day, more or less. So these were a few dependencies, and there were strings attached, of course. And at that point, we also realized we needed to double down on our design manpower in our team. So this process, no wonder, was a bit longer than we expected it to be. Now a little deep dive into our system that I want to share with you. We have these like 4 categories, how we look at things. There's this meta level where we have principle, strategy, or also how-to guides. Then there's this foundation of tokens, it's called. These are all like variables of style, like typography, colors, dimensions, stuff like this. And then there are the patterns. These are, of course, all these building blocks in the design system, the graphical building blocks, UI cards and stuff. And in the end, you build design comps or layouts out of all of these things. So that's what it looks like. This is this token style layer here. Then you can see patterns, of course, like buttons, and the final comps. And if you look again at our, okay, here's it in action. You can see how it builds in, how from like these single parts, we stack them together into elements, components. And if you replicate this, you have like this living product, like with all these duplications of this one card. So these are these 4 pillars, and we color-coded them to have a visual representation in our design files. These are all our design files in Figma. And for example, the patterns file, this is something I want to dig into to show you what it looks like inside there. Figma, at that point, I want to flag out that it's just really good to have the right tool in play, because this made it possible for us to collaborate in the cloud. We started to build with Figma in 2018. It wasn't that popular by then, but it really paid out. If you think of COVID in 2020 right now, having a team work remote on just one in one environment is much more easy. So I'm going to zoom into this. And I think, Heiko, you can scroll a little. And you can see that this is just like a part of the product and a part of our patterns, but this is quite a lot already. So it's like a huge catalog where we had all these things listed and ready to use in your designs. It's like a never-ending list. Okay, I think we are fine. Now I have something special for you. This is a live demo I wanted to show. I have my friend here. You can see him on the top, Finn. He's sitting remotely, and I just want to give you an idea how it looks like when you actually have this design system in play and when you're rebuilding the Spiegel homepage, like we did. We took a screenshot from Spiegel as it looks today, and Finn now starts building these blocks here. And these are all like not filled right now. You can see there's headline 28. This is just like a placeholder, but these are all like ready to use components. And we also we tweaked a little bit on our workflow. So we are using a plugin to fetch data from SPIEGEL.de and feed it into Figma. This is also great if you have a web API running in your design tool, because you can actually communicate with that. And while Finn is building, there's one thing I'm always thinking about. There's just this one step still missing where design tools and code repositories really merge together in terms of that you only have to build with code components instead of design patterns, I guess. That would be probably the next step in all this development. So I guess Finn is done, and I think now at some point he's pressing a magic button and then all the content should appear actually. Let's see. Yeah. Right. So I guess if you look at Spiegel.de right now, you might see this this content, and yeah, that's it. That's actually how fast you can build the Spiegel.de website with the components already be there. That's the actual current news. Yeah, that's what we did. We built this little plugin that fetches the data. That's, for presentation purpose, it somehow helps to see how fluently you can work today. And here's a nice breaking news, maybe sometimes. Right. So good. Thank you, Finn. I hope that was interesting for you to see how we build in Figma, and we can switch back to our presentation. Actually, Figma is also, our presentation is built in Figma, so it's good for many purposes. Before I'm running out of time, a few learnings.
Hopefully no one's messing with your presentation now.
No, I think it's good. A few learnings from building a system. I think it's really critical to not start too early, because building a structure in design really slows you down too, of course. So as long as you're building the design direction, I think it's better to just have a few utility components in play and of course some styles, but start with more complex stuff when you're like defined how your visual language works. Also, the right tooling, I mentioned that already, is really critical. And another thought is that, as I said, I think trying to maintain a design system in the design tool can be really, it would affect efficiency somehow because you always have to keep in sync with development. So I guess with the next evolving steps in the industry, somehow when we have code components, this will make things more easily, or we can just hand off earlier to the development part. Okay, so now at the end of our involvement, we had this adoption going on. We needed to hand over the thing that we did to the internal teams. We had to make sure that the design system actually gets adopted successfully, and we had to transfer all the knowledge that we built to the internal team. So the thing was, this co-create setup at Spiegel, it was really great. So we as a small task force team were working together with the teams there, but at some point it was just not possible to get all the internal designers aboard more early in the process, which would have been great, because then you would really own the whole thing together rather than handing it off later. But it was just until when we started to build the system, we had a few designers aboard already, but in the end there was just a lot of things we had to transition over to the internal teams, and that's what we did on our way out. And it looked like this, that we had some workshops where we did one-on-one coaching and talked about all the tooling, all the processes, and it was really cool because the team spirit was really good, and they were super curious about taking over all that work. And we wrote something like a book, more an online book, but this is our design documentation, where we actually really wrote down all the things that we experienced, all the decisions we made somehow in a comprehensive way that you can read through and also use for onboarding new team members and as a guidance in everyday design work, like how everything works, all that kind of stuff, how Figma works. Yeah, the best design systems are never done. I like this quote. I mean, it's an ongoing job. It's a living product, of course. So, but our involvement at that point was more or less done. One step back. Maybe a few learnings here. It's the thing, if you're a third party, you have to take care about that adoption goes well, because if it doesn't, you just know that it won't live long. The things that you want to leave something that people should be able to work with. So that's really the sweet spot with adoption here. So you have to be open to all the questions and needs that people have when they work and talk to you. Get all the people you can get aboard as soon as possible, because then you can own all these things together. And one thing in kind of a reflection of the job is that due to the fact that we were building all that stuff, it kept us really tied up and busy building all that stuff, being a design engineer, whereas I think it would have helped having more team members aboard, so we could maybe also have done some more consulting and like design strategic thinking later in the process, which got kind of lost on the way because we really had just to get the thing done, of course. Yeah, but maybe that's a point. I would take it as a learning for me, for our team, for the next project to not let go of this focus. So last part, what's it all good for? A few key results to look at. We have a more unified brand experience right now. If you look at the magazine, if you look at the news website, this is more like one product. We have the same colors, we have the same set of typo. We have like also editorial content. It's more one thing. And we achieved to have some more of the consciousness for design at Spiegel. I would say this Spiegel is not necessarily the most design-friendly environment. If you look at it historically, because the magazine is really strict how design works, and the news product evolved like it hadn't that really particular design focus. But I think our project brought a new angle to this, and also this new team evolved. Like people that worked there before are now working in a team that's called Design Lab, and they're building digital product now. This is something else than they did before. And also they have a creative director overall there. This is also new, so the organization changed towards design, which is great to see. The editors got really endless possibilities building the page. You can see it there. I took this screenshot in March when these news clusters get really big. So this is one news cluster about Corona, and that's what happens sometimes. So they're able to do this. Also, they sometimes stick with habits that they just can't let go of, because we built, like, I find this quite funny, we built this live flag that's also like pulsing to show there's something going on, it's live, but still they're using the red kicker line to repeatedly say, hey, it's live, it's with 3 plus, it's live stream there, and live stream impeachment fights. It's just a fun fact. Now with the new product in play at Spiegel, they can do actually incremental improvements on their product. So you can see this sometimes when you use the app, that it would come with a questionnaire, and you can help them improve their products. It wasn't possible like this before, and they can also do more A/B testing and stuff. And we see a significant increase in digital subscribers. Of course, partly because of Corona, because there was a more the need for news was stronger at that time, but also because the product offers more possibility and better access to paid content. We see an increase in efficiency when it comes to scaling the system. So Manager Magazine just relaunched half a year later to Spiegel, and they're using the same system. And by replicating the system, there doesn't happen too much duplicate work, of course. And they're using the system also for different homepages, but that's just one interesting fact. You can scale much more easily. And also nice result. Okay, now I can't click anymore. Okay. Also nice for us is that our journey with Spiegel, it continued with Patrick. He's a really great illustrator. We developed something like a set of illustration that works in a system, and that's living in the product. So you can like build every other scenario out of illustrations to accompany the product content there. And we worked on some brand architecture for Manager Magazine, and we're doing other stuff for Spiegel as well. So, and that's now I'm finished. That if you want to learn more about Spiegel and all the things that they do, you can check it out online on Medium. They have a dev blog there. If you want to learn something about our studio, you can find us at make.studio. And if you want to connect with me, there's my email address, and I'm on Twitter as Michael Ahlf. Thank you.